By this time, you probably figured out that these things definitely catch fish. You may have figured out how to rig them. You've definitely caught fish. You bought a couple of them, and now you're figuring out, I want to get more. How do I store them in my kayak, my boat, my rod box, at home, on the bank? How am I going to fish them? How am I going to carry? Like, how am I going to store these effectively, keep them in good condition, so I can carry multiple colors, multiple sizes, all that stuff. So whether we're talking the original Coike, the Arsenal Morningstar, or even the Yamoto Unis, what are some options? I think I got 5 good options for you today for storing these, from pretty inexpensive to maybe more high-end stuff and everything in between. And I'll kind of give you the pros and cons of each one, because I'm not sure if I found the perfect one yet, but I've all got their pluses and minuses, so let's get into it. And hopefully you learned some lessons, because I tried to make my own out of this guy, and definitely used the wrong tool and ended up with a box that's going in the trash can here. So hopefully it'll save you some mistakes. Pro tip: don't use a circular saw on these things. There are better tools for that. All right, let's start with this one here. So here's a deep Plano, I don't know, these 3700s, 3600s, something like that. And you can kind of, what I did is I took out the middle section and basically removed this center divider and then cut slots with a Dremel tool, which worked okay. Got it was a little melting, a little bit of cutting, but it gets the idea. As a test, you could probably find a better tool to do that a little neater. But you can basically get 6 or 8 of these, depending on what size, down the middle. I also cut some short slots on the edge, so that if you wanted to have some pre-rigged baits, right, you could probably hang them from their treble, dangle them in like that. So it's okay. Pluses of this: you can do it yourself. You probably have this box laying around. It's something that you probably have the tools and almost everything. If not, you can buy this box relatively inexpensive for less than $10. If you've got some Dremels, maybe a little jigsaw, routers, things like that, hot knife, you can probably make this box pretty expensively. You can kind of customize it. It does leave you with an outside row for storing some hooks, weights, other things that you can use for rigging, and things like that. So that's kind of option one. Not super in love with this one. I think you could take this concept and make it your own. Depending on the box you buy, you could probably do a decent job with this. And I guess one of the tips is, from what I've seen, is basically save your wires that these come in on, right? Whether it's the Coikes or this Arsenal Morningstar, save the wires. They're pretty beneficial for storing the baits that way. So speaking of the original box, you can get a soft-sided case. I have a buddy of mine here. I'm showing you his case here. He's got a soft-sided, I think it's an Evolution case. He can fit 6 of them. He's basically storing them in their original box. One of the advantages that will fit this style 20mm Urchin, it will not fit the big hide-up Coike boxes. So they may make bigger boxes, but these boxes are pretty big. So if you want to go with this 20mm kind of competitor version, you can fit 6 of them in this box. You know, you got to put the box together, keep the wire, but you know, it's pretty simple. If you're only going to have 6 of them, it's not a bad system. That bag does cost like 30 or 40 bucks, so it is a little pricey, but it is kind of simple. Keeps them in the original package. You know it's going to work. So that's option number 2. Option number 3, which was kind of the most popular one at first that I saw, is this Gamakatsu 3700 deep utility case, which you basically take most of the dividers out, and then it basically has these sections where you can slide the wires down in there, and it works really good for the hide-up versions, the full cast, the 17mm, 13mm. You know, you can get 1 full cast per wire. You can probably get 2 of the 17s or 2 of the 13s, and they slot right down in these wires. The wires are longer on the hide-up versions, so if you've got a lot of hide-ups, this is a really nice case for that. They just basically slide down, and they just basically stand on the bottom of the box, and they sit in nice. You can use it for some of the other ones out there, but the wires aren't as long on these. So what I've done is a lot of times, I don't really, like the hide-up ones come with these rubber tubes. I don't know if you can see that, to center the bait, which I don't think you really need. These little tubes, you cut these down, and I put them on the ends of these other versions, and it helps snug them up and keep them in place in this box so you can kind of suspend them. So you could probably figure out some other way to put a little tape on there or other little nubs on these wires just to get them to lock in. And I find you can put like 2 of the 20 millimeters side by side in here. So you can get your density up pretty decent in this box. It kind of is a little bit of a finesse to get them in and out to sit in these little, you know, it's not necessarily fast, but it's not like a Senko where you're going through like these rapidly, right? So you got time to kind of finagle them in and get them to set in there. As far as I can tell, bleeding is not really an option, so you can kind of get the tentacles to overlap. You know, we've got Morning Stars in here, we've got Abstracts in here, we've got actual Coikes in here. The other nice thing is you can put the dividers in on the ends, and I've got a little compartment where I can keep all my little accessories of Nico weights that I'm going to use, little tabs, little things like that. And I got another compartment for treble hooks and single wire hooks. So I've got hooks, weights, all my baits. So this is probably the most complete system that has pretty good density. The box is actually kind of hard to find these days. If you can find one, I think they're 15 to 20 bucks. They're not outrageous. You can get quite a few baits in there. You can double up on some of the smaller sizes. You know, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think you could easily get 15, maybe 20 baits if you really crunch them in there and have places for your baits. So, plus, it works pretty good with the wire. They're fairly easy in out. You get decent density. You can kind of customize it, play with the wires a little bit, and it allows you to store all the components you really need in one box. Really, the main con is availability of this box. Maybe you can find other deep 3700 type systems that have this distance right for the wires, and you can do the same thing. That's option number 3. Option number 4 is another expensive one. I'll give the tip of the cap to Skeeter Crosby. I saw it first on his, I think, TikTok or Instagram, but basically he's using a Plano frog box, edge box, which I'm not a big fan of Plano edge stuff, nothing against them, but like $40, $50 tackle boxes. I've never caught a bass on a tackle box. I really hate spending that much money on a tackle box. But basically you can hang the frog, you can rebend the wires and then hang the baits that way from there, and they hang vertically in that box. You can see here in this video showing off how he bends the wires, hangs them. Really, it seems like a pretty good system. Downside is the cost of that box and maybe the time to bend the wires. But overall, it seems like a pretty good bait. And you can probably hang rigged baits from those wires as well and put away baits with treble hooks and Neko and maybe pre-rig several baits and hang them there. So that could be a good option. My final option that I'm going to show you is another box that I made myself using basically a 3700 deep Plano style. I'm sure the Flambeau makes them. A lot of people make these, but basically the empty one that has no dividers. And basically I took the wires, trimmed them down, a little bit of length off them. So basically you snip about 1.5 inches on them, leave the bend in here, and then I drilled holes about 2 inches, just a tiny little hole, and then basically used epoxy or hot melt to glue all these tines in. And I've got 18 baits in here, so the density is really good. I got more than that actually. If you count the little ones and the unis where I'm putting multiple, I could probably get 20 to 24 baits in here. And it didn't take me, I probably made this box in 15-20 minutes. You measure it out, you drill them, you glue a little bit of glue on the backside. The flat wire fits in this little groove. You glue the length of that. You flip it over, let it set up a little bit, kind of mound up a little glue on the top of this. And these things are surprisingly in there. These wires are not moving, and you can, you know, rig a rigged bait on there like this one. I can push it right down on the post, whether I'm on the spot for it or not. They hold up really well. And so I'm pretty surprised how easy this was to make and how well it turned out. So really you may have this box. You can probably buy this box for less than 10 bucks. You already have the wires from your baits, a small drill bit, some hot melt, some epoxy, a little wire snip, and you can make this thing in a jiffy, and I actually think this one's pretty cool. Probably the only downside to this one is I don't have a compartment in here to put my hooks or my weights, so you probably have to carry another small box maybe something like this, or another little box, right, to put some of your weights or hooks, or maybe just store them separately. Hopefully that gives you some great ideas. If you've got other ideas on how you store them, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Share them down below so other people can learn. If you want to, if you got the baits, you got the storage down, and you're not sure how to rig them, here's a deep dive on how to rig these baits right here next.
The other really cool thing you can do is if you have a split ring on your treble hook, you can easily add a little tiny drop shot.